Welcome to Finding the Frame. I'm your host, Chris Haigh, and today I'm joined by California Film Commission Executive Director Colleen Bell. We're going to look at Colleen's background and how she started off as a script supervisor on The Bold and the Beautiful and went on to become a multi-Emmy Award nominated executive producer. Then, how she became the US ambassador to Hungary under President Obama, and how she's now fighting for California's filmmaking future. Colleen, welcome to Finding the Frame.
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
So before we dive into policy and into everything like that, I'd really like to know about the person behind the position. So you've had this remarkable journey. You've gone through all these different things. Talk to me about how you started in storytelling. You obviously wanted to start by being a storyteller and being a filmmaker, by being a scriptie at The Bold and the Beautiful. So talk me through that. What was it that turned you to storytelling?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I grew up in Evanston, Illinois. And Evanston is this really wonderful, creative community, kind of a melting pot. It's where John Hughes shot a lot of his movies, 16 Candles, Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's parts of it there, yeah. Home Alone 3.
Yeah.
So I think that started a bit of, the film bug at some point. But I found my way, at university I was studying economics and international relations, and I have an equal love for government and international affairs as well, and found that I thought that would be my career path. But I re-met my childhood sweetheart, and he was starting a new soap opera, and I was 24 and he was 27. And it was kind of all hands on deck. We got married, and it was all hands on deck. So that's kind of how I found my way into it in an official capacity. Started out answering phones. I really didn't think that I would stay that long. I thought I would go to law school, honestly, because I thought, how am I going to get back to Washington? Maybe I'll go to law school. Maybe I'll go work, for some, for news. Or something like that, nonfiction. I really didn't know that I would be someone who could really devote themselves so much to fiction. But anyhow, I caught the bug super, super quickly. And what was so remarkable is this little half-an-hour TV show, The Bold and the Beautiful. It took a while to get it kind of up and running and increased viewership, and the international markets were opening up at that time, and the half-hour show was packaged along with another show for free to international markets.
Oh, I see.
And it just completely took off. So what we found was that our viewership internationally just kept increasing to one point we were the most watched television show in the world. All of a sudden, before streaming, before internet, before cable. And here we had maybe 150 million, don't hold me to that, but maybe at least 50 million viewers around the world watching The Bold and the Beautiful. So I thought, what an extraordinary platform to use that as a vehicle to entertain, to inspire, to educate. And so that was kind of my real hook, is just the ability to storytell, to evoke emotion, to build social cohesion, to promote peace, to promote inclusivity, to educate people on some of, the world's most pressing and vexing issues. And so that was kind of my hook, and which is why I stayed. After answering the phones, I worked in casting for a while, script supervisor for a while, and then I was director of special projects, which is when we started really telling these stories. My husband, the head writer, and me working, but major story arcs, it was when the AIDS epidemic and Africa was raging, and we had so many viewers in Africa and high level of illiteracy. And so, well-intentioned CDC and other organizations handing out pamphlets, but, some weren't able to read them, yet they were watching The Bold and the Beautiful. They were invested in these characters. They were in their living room. And so we told a 3-month story arc on HIV prevention, and evidently it was very effective. And that's just like one of many stories of what we did. And it just helped to secure my love of storytelling for so many reasons, kind of like bridging my activist personality, my love for international relations, global affairs, and storytelling.
And where were you filming that? Where is the Bolden? Is it still in the same place that it's always been? Was it always filmed in the same studios? Or
It is, well, we call it CBS TV City.
Yeah.
But, Beverly and Fairfax.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
So you were able to reach...
Like 36 years or
Yeah.
something now. It's still on the air and just signed for a couple more years. It's really remarkable.
And you were reaching out to, over 100 countries globally, I suppose, at that time? Because I learned about it in England. I mean, I knew about The Bold and the Beautiful when I was back there.
Right.
So, you were able to get these messages out there. And what does a director of special projects do? What was it that you were doing as director of special projects in that respect?
Yeah, director of special projects actually at that time was really kind of carving out a position where I could do deeper dives on setting up, outlines on socially conscious stories that we could tell that would have a positive impact on humanity. And so that's what I was doing. And my husband, Brad, who's written over 9,500 episodes of TV, it's like unbelievable what he's done. But it was just, amazing because, he was 100% in it, and, the ability for us to work together.
Is he still going now?
That.
He's still writing?
Oh, he's still writing. Can you imagine being married to someone who's written that many episodes of TV? He's got this process. He's like, his notepad, his red pen, his writers. Yeah, he's still doing it, and the ratings are good. His demos are good. He still loves
winning
what
Emmys.
He does. He's actually headed out to do a remote location shoot he's excited about. I don't think I can announce it here, but it's in Europe and in one of the markets where we're very popular. So yeah, he's excited.
Wow, so they're going abroad, as it were.
Yeah, going abroad, but it's shot here in Los Angeles.
So how does that take? So you then became an executive producer of that show. How did you go from executive producer to then U.S. ambassador in Hungary, appointed by President Barack Obama? Talk me through that process.
I'm so happy. I think that you asked that, whether I realized it or not, I do now realize it, but each of my decisions that I've made for, truly from a place of love. And that may sound so esoteric and strange. But so when I was producing Bold and Beautiful, I had our fourth child.
Okay.
And
what was this?
I was in the hospital, and Brad had brought in the 3 other little kids, and he was in there and holding baby Oliver, and they're bouncing around. And I'm telling you, I just had this strong kind of presence of a voice. That was said, you have to take 2 years off of work.
Okay.
I was in a maternity leave, and this was like someone's good. It was just so profound. I had to listen to it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm lucky I was able to do that. Very lucky that I was able to do that. I feel gratitude for that. So I decided, okay, 2 years, all right. Well, a couple of weeks, 6 weeks into it, I said, well, what have I always wanted to do that I've never had time to do? And that was work on toxic chemical reform. It's always been an interest for me. I've always been very critical of the way our lack of regulation of toxic chemicals here in the United States. I wanted to do a deeper dives. And I wanted to see what I could do to try to rectify the situation that we find ourselves here in the United States at that time. So I reached out to the NRDC, who were doing the best work on this, and I said, hey, you guys want to volunteer? I've got a little extra time on my hands, and that's how. So then they sent me to Washington, D.C. I met a variety of different senators on this one given day, and one was 3 months into his first term, young senator from Illinois named Barack Obama. And I was in his office. We have this meeting. He's like, we're waiting for him, and he just comes straight in. This is before it was like Barack Obama. People knew Barack Obama. He comes in, it's like full of energy, sits down. All right, what you guys got going today? Had a conversation, I walk into the hallway with my two colleagues. It was Kelly Meyer and Lori David at that time. And I said to them, he's going to be our president someday. And they're like, huh? It was just like, and it's like, absolutely sure that he was going to be the president. So when he decided to run, he reached out and said, hey, I'm going to run for president. Are you on board? I said, absolutely. So volunteered for his campaigns, was very involved in the campaign process, went back to work producing and just supporting him in the campaign process as much as I could, and a variety of different presidential appointments. And then, I thought, I was encouraged to throw my hat in the ring for an ambassadorship. And sure enough, I did, and was really thrilled that I was chosen. What an honor and a privilege to serve as U.S. ambassador to Hungary.
Yeah. And then, so you get sent over there in 2014. So while you're over there, you've got all kinds of stuff going on. We've got the Viktor Orban, I suppose, government or whatever, administration coming in, which is now obviously quite the interesting administration, let's put it that way. You know what I mean? We're talking about it being authoritarian and all these kind of things. That was happening while you were over there. Were you seeing kind of like the seeds of authoritarianism starting to come in Hungary while you were over there, or what was that like?
Oh, what I can say is Viktor Orban was the prime minister while I was there at Post the entire time. And what I can say is that I had a front row seat to, the rise of hyper-nationalism.
Correct.
Absolutely. So what
was it like for you? Was that quite scary?
No, not scary at all.
Yeah.
It actually, there was the bilateral relationship was it was a bit strained when I first arrived. First of all, Hungary is a member, has been a member of the Community of Democracies. They're an important NATO ally of ours, member of the European Union, etc. So while I was there, I was very outspoken, and I had complete support of Secretary Kerry and President Obama to be very honest and candid with our with the Orban administration about what do we think is important in terms of the basic democratic principles. Okay, not all democracies need to look the same. They don't. We don't expect that, but the basic principles and tenets, of democracy are important. And I really saw everything through the optics of U.S. national security. Yeah. So they are an important ally of ours, and still are. But in terms of the democratic principles, and just making sure they're as sound and firm as possible. And so we had some really tough conversations. I delivered what was at that time a speech at Corvinus University that really highlighted what was working well within the bilateral relationship, and what were some of our concerns. And it really kind of hadn't been done before, and it went completely viral across Europe. But I felt, it was just kind of a moment of time that needed to be met. But again, that was one piece of my work in Hungary. Yeah. It was very productive, and our commercial cooperation, law enforcement cooperation, military cooperation was super focused on that, and had very productive meetings with all the representatives of government. Yeah. So we can express concerns. Friends can talk to friends. We're allies. Needed to be done, but I feel good about what I was able to accomplish at that time.
Absolutely. One of the things I read about you was when Vladimir Putin was coming into power, came to visit Budapest at the time. You stood up while you were in Budapest and kind of spoke about the fact that government overreach shouldn't be happening and things like that. Is that correct? Was that something that I read that was right? So while Vladimir Putin was in Budapest, you were able to speak up against government overreach and things like that whilst he was there.
Yeah,
right?
it was
That
even
takes some
like
backbone, right?
beyond government overreach.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go through the list,
Dictatorship, effectively.
I was critical.
Yeah. Was that not terrifying in the same way as having a lot of backbone? Was that something you felt like?
So let me tell you, it was interesting what happened. So I decided that President Putin was coming to Budapest.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, that was like a little bit of a, really? He's coming to Budapest? I mean, illegal annexation of Crimea.
Yeah.
Okay?
It was because you were standing up for Ukraine at the time as well, weren't you?
Complete disregard for the territorial integrity of a sovereign nation.
Correct.
Complete.
Yeah.
U.S. sanctions are in place against Russia at that point. Mm-hmm. And yet, President Putin is invited to come and visit Hungary.
Yeah.
Again, a NATO ally. So, listen, something needed to be said. So what I decided to do is host an event with the EU ambassadors and myself, and it was just it was an event where I knew that I could just deliver some remarks.
Correct.
Well, deliver those remarks, and then they'll go to the press. Well, what happened is evidently President Putin was late, and so it was only my remarks that made it into the news cycle before him coming. So anyhow, it was interesting. I'd only been in there for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And no, I was never afraid. And I'll tell you, you take an oath of office, and I was serious about that. And I wasn't going to compromise my beliefs or the beliefs that we collectively felt within the Obama administration and the State Department, and be bold and brave and deliver those messages.
Wowzers. Something else that was happening at the same time in Hungary was, I think his name's Andrew Vanya.
Yeah.
And he was building the foundations that are now what is Hungary's film industry out there. He was setting into place things like infrastructure and things like that. Did you see much of that happening on? Was there anything that it sort of impacted upon you before you came back here and became the California Film Commission director? Can you speak to that?
Yeah. Right. First, I actually, so before I had my first official meeting with Prime Minister Orban, with the foreign minister and the president and everyone else, before I had my official meeting with Prime Minister Orban, Andy Vanya invited me to come to dinner, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, Prime Minister Orban, and Andy Vanya, and myself. So it was the four of us. And Andy Vanya is like very sleek, white vinyl house, and in the Buda side. I think it was Buda side, but in Hungary, and it was a pretty extraordinary conversation. I mean, a lot of conversation about movies and that type of a thing, but it is a memory that I have. And then, of course, I met with Prime Minister Orban officially many, many times after that. Yeah. But yeah, so here's the thing. In terms of a bilateral relationship, so my job as U.S. ambassador, and I mentioned earlier my mandate, one of them was to support and encourage commercial cooperation between our two countries.
Correct.
The more prosperous our allies are, the better we are.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but at the same time, it was always, okay, so they were, they had just launched their film and TV tax credit program that was coming off very lucrative tax credits. Like, they just were like, come on.
Yeah.
Doing a great job of training. The Hungarians are such hard workers, super talented people. I think they got trained and ready to go, building out the infrastructure. So it was kind of all there. It was just sort of building at that time. So how I found that I could be helpful was a variety of ways. But one way was heads of studios trying to encourage actors to pack their families, move to Budapest, Hungary, which sounds very far away and very exotic. And you're bringing your 6-year-olds and, putting them into school and, that type of thing. So I was on speed dial for all the heads of studios and head of physical production and whomever here in the U.S. First, I would say, listen, have you ruled out shooting in the United States of America first? Okay, you need to tell me that you've ruled this out first. No, we've chosen Hungary for these reasons, etc. Okay, let me see how I can be helpful. Or they'll call and say, we're considering. This is what I loved. They would say, we've ruled out the U.S. for whatever reason, okay? We're considering Czechoslovakia, Hungary, where else at that time?
Poland,
Ireland. Yeah. So tell us about Hungary. I'm like, oh, let me tell you about Hungary. I wanted that production there.
Yeah.
We wanted those productions there. So I do, and I received a big award while I was there, just in terms of
from Hungary.
I was able to accomplish in terms of commercial cooperation. I feel really good about that. Yeah. But I used to get I had 2 phones, but I had and they're always ringing all the time. But anyhow, I'd get these U.S. numbers that were unknown numbers.
Yeah.
But I learned I had to pick them up because it would be like, hi, this is actor whomever, or this is whomever, so-and-so said I could call you. I'm like, no problem, super safe here, an amazing place to live. Kind of talk them through, and they're like, okay. And then sure enough, the whole production would come. But if that particular actor wasn't willing to shoot in Hungary,
the whole production went down.
It was off. So
you probably made, I suppose now in your position now, I suppose you kick yourself because you set up this amazing thing in Hungary, and now you're trying to bring it back from there, right? You kind of made a rod for your own back, I suppose.
Come on, it's so true.
Yeah.
When there's a project that, I'm happy for Hungary, I'll be honest with you. Do I want the production in California? Absolutely.
1,000,000%.
Am I going to compete and try to win against Hungary? 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I'm thrilled, they have done such an exceptional job building out their infrastructure and training their crews. And
what did you learn from over there then? Because obviously they've just had, I think it was The Brutalist that's just won loads of Oscars and stuff like that. That filmed in Budapest. We've got loads of stuff. I think there's a Marvel movie that's going to go over there now. Poor Things was over there. There's tons filming. Da Vinci Code film. There's absolutely loads of stuff filming over there. I dare say Shane will probably be going over to Budapest at any time in the near future. So there's loads of stuff going on there, and it's like, what do you bring back from there to California that we can technically, how can you do what you did to Hungary in California? How do you do that?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's quite the question.
Well, it's interesting. That's just what I've been focused on for the last 6 years.
Did you pick up any tips then from when you were over there that you might think about doing while you're over here?
Well, interestingly enough, it was like, I think I the training piece of it.
Okay.
I think kind of like just making sure that to keep the pipeline, the entertainment workforce pipeline, to keep feeding it in the training programs, which we do so well here. To be honest with you, it's almost like they were learning from us.
Yeah.
Almost like they were learning from us.
Yeah. And then obviously, so then you came back. What was the time frame between you finishing over in Hungary as the ambassador there and then being appointed by Gavin Newsom as the California Film Commission executive director? Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. We all thought that Hillary Clinton was going to win.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have meant I would have stayed for a while
Copy that.
longer. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So when President Trump was elected, I had a short window to tie up all the programs that I had initiated. And so it was really speedy, tying everything up, getting packed out, getting my kids into new schools,
Wow.
bringing them back to the States, all that. Anyhow, my husband did a good job with that, to be honest, because I had not a free minute to manage all of that. But it was like getting shot out of a cannon, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
And this is from the election in November right through to January when President Trump took over.
So President
Gotcha.
Trump had issued a directive for all of the ambassadors who were appointee ambassadors. We call them political appointees, but I'm a political appointee, but also so was my colleague who was the number 2 in the army who served as U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia. He was a political appointee too, just not a career foreign service officer. So I came back. I went to New York. I had a lot of debriefing to do in D.C., so that was the easiest place to do it. Okay. So I did that for 6 months. Came back. Governor Newsom was elected, and conversations just started. And I have a background in government, a background in production, and he was like, "Hey, I want you to do this. Are you you're back in California?" And I was thrilled. It was so great to be working in California during that time too. It was just such a major shift for so many reasons. A new administration with the President Trump administration, having left Hungary and all the work that I was doing there, and such a soft landing, being able to be here in California, this incredible, creative, kind of free-spirited, inclusive, wonderful, community.
Yeah.
And to be able to work here and work for someone like, Governor Newsom. But yeah, it's been a wonderful 6 years.
Yeah. And when you told me a little story when we spoke beforehand about when he appointed you, he kind of came to you with a vision for filmmaking within this state. I wonder if you could share that with us. You remember?
Yeah. Well, actually, the story that I told you was that Governor Newsom swore me in. I went up to Sacramento, and he puts your hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, swearing in, and I put my hand down, and I went straight into, Governor Newsom, this is what we need to do. Yeah. And even the small amount of time that I spent, preparing for the position, it was obvious to me that there was a lot that needed to be done, and just in terms of what we need to do to improve our competitiveness. So I've just been continuously trying to lay the groundwork for that. Yeah. A lot of data reporting, doing kind of anything I can. And the governor's been extremely receptive. I mean, no governor in history has made the bold decisions like Governor Newsom has, in terms of meeting this inflection point moment where we absolutely need to improve our competitiveness. Yeah. We have there is runaway production, and something needs to be done about it. And, I'm sure I can get into it now if you want me to, or you can ask the question about what we're doing. But
I mean, let's break it down then. So let's talk about what's the current state of the industry as you see it right now. Obviously I mentioned in the intro about we're 22% down on production year on year. It's looking pretty grim right now. We're seeing things going off to Georgia. We're seeing things going off to New York. We're seeing things going to Hungary and London. Like my home country, it couldn't be happier with the amount of production that it's getting. So talk me through how you see the state of the film industry in California right now. And
well, here we are right now. I mean, we're rebounding. We are trying to navigate the aftershocks of COVID, of the dual labor strikes, even the threat of the labor strikes. There was a contraction. And then the labor strikes, which, listen, I want to also say the labor strikes, when I talk about that, it's important for the unions, you know,
to say what they need
to say what they need to say, you know, and the studios and to continue that constructive dialogue. So I don't want it to sound like
no. Did you play?
It's important.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, that's okay. So we're rebounding from that, but I mean, slowly, but we are in a situation for a variety of reasons, not just that, that we have slowly, gradually been losing our market share. And I've been sounding the alarm on that for a while. It's a combination of factors. But what it really comes down to, too, is just more lucrative tax credits in other jurisdictions.
Correct.
And I run a capped program at $330 million a year. This is California, and $330 million. Okay, and it doesn't.
It's nothing, is it?
I'm turning, turning away historically turning away qualified projects that meet our criteria. Yet we don't have enough tax credits to allocate. And where are they going? They're going to Georgia, Vancouver, UK, wherever. But they should be here. This is where they should be.
Who's put those straitjackets on you? Who's put that 330? Is that a government problem? Is that something? I mean, I know right now California's got a $38 billion deficit.
It's a tough
It's massive.
budget year.
So therefore, for you to be able to fight within that, I mean, we're going to get into the fact that you're trying to increase that to $750 billion. But
yeah.
I mean, there's people out there right now. I've been working with a lot of them, and there's other people within this room right now, filmmakers themselves, who are working within these tight budgets. And it's one of these where it's like every one of them is saying 750 million. Well, New York just increased it to 800 million, and all these other ones. And it's one of these where it's like, why can't we do 1.5 billion? Why can't we do this? And is that the reason? Because of this deficit? Is that what's straitjacking us into this?
So let's talk about the progress here
Please,
first.
yeah.
So started out at 100 million. Then it was increased to 330. This is all progress.
During your time.
And now to 330. And now this proposal to 750. This is incredible. This is bold, necessary action at an inflection point moment. We have a lot of people in California who are out of work. And it just shouldn't be that way. This is a legacy industry for California.
Yeah.
Legacy industry for California. We're like the home of innovation. You think about our creative community. 100 years ago, entertainment production started here in California. And what came after that? Because of our creative community, the tech industry, the tech boom, right? And then after that, we've got AI coming in. So it's because we're this creave ecosystem, creative powerhouse and ecosystem that it's been here. But and what I want to do is I want to make sure we're future proof. We're not just curbing runaway production. Okay, we're
trying to stop AI from taking all of our jobs.
We're future-proofing us, making sure that we put a framework of policies in place for the future of entertainment production in California. I mean, this is such an important industry, and I'll tell you, the amount of hardship stories that I have heard. I mean, it's
countless.
It's countless.
Yeah.
It's countless, and something can be done about it. One of the primary considerations of where a project decides to film is whether or not they can receive a tax credit to offset their budgets. Those are the conditions we're working under. This is the reality. But what's so cool and great about our program in California is our program is very targeted and focused. It's based on a jobs ratio and a qualified spend. So the return on investment for Californians is a positive one. It's very different than Georgia. You apply, you receive the tax credit. This one is, we make sure you meet our criteria. You have a certain amount of qualified expenditures, certain amount of jobs are going to be creative. Okay, you meet it, boom. If we have enough tax credits, we put a ranking system together, boom, it's going to you. But any of those that job ratio rankings that are lower, even if they're high enough to meet our criteria, we haven't had enough tax credits to allocate to them. So this proposal would allow us to bring in many, many, many more projects, get many more Californians back to work doing the jobs they love to do. Again, like I said, I'm a taxpayer in California, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think about how do we invest taxpayer dollars. And so an economic impact study was done on the film and TV tax credit program. And it found that for every tax credit dollar allocated, it generates $24.40. It's a positive return on investment. So, this is kind of tried and true. This is not a handout. It's not an outlay of taxpayer dollars. It's an investment. So that's the way that I like to frame it.
There are those that would say, though, that the frameworks that we're putting in place out here are something that is almost detrimental. Like at the moment, because you've got like Georgia that's got no cap, it's got no above the line is included in all of their stuff, whereas ours it doesn't include above the line. So there's all these problems that we've got here that they've managed to sort of assuage, I suppose, and even they're struggling for production. I know the people who've been working out there right now are saying their sound stages are empty. So it's like, we've put these parameters in place. Why can't we open it up to above the line? Is that because that 750 will disappear really quickly? What is it that's causing that? Because if we exclude above the line, we're excluding the best directors, the best producers, the best paid, obviously, the best actors who would be better. It really does hamstring us in California to not have, the best actors on being able to be included in our tax credits, the best directors to be included in our tax credits. There's a reason why Martin Scorsese won't be shooting out here in California. These are the people we want to attract. We want to have the best. Like you said, we're like Savile Row to Suits. This should be, at the end of every single movie should be made in Hollywood, California. In the same way, if you're in Georgia, if you put made in Georgia, then you get 10% tax back for putting made in Georgia, you know what I mean? Yeah. So these things should be something that we aspire to. It used to be something that we could do in the past. I know that Louis B. Mayer, when he used to make films at MGM, he wanted to have made in Culver City, California at the end of every film. That was his big deal, and it seems like that's something we could include. So talk to me about that. So
here's the thing, the conversation about what it comes down to is the effective tax rate. Okay, and our effective tax rate is too low.
Yeah.
It's I have always said we can't compete dollar for dollar, but the value is here in California. The value is here. I mean, we have the depth of our crews, the talent of our crews, our infrastructure, our innovation. We are continents worth of landscapes in one state. Equipment, innovation, our weather. All of the values are there. But right now, the gap has gotten too wide. So I would say okay, you know what? We just can't let that gap get too wide. But other programs have continued to improve their competitiveness. More jurisdictions kind of getting in the marketplace here. So there are two bills at play right now. One in the Senate and one in the Assembly that seek programmatic changes to the film and TV tax credit program. Right now, we offer 20%.
Yeah.
20%. It's low. So there's consideration right now and of increasing the percentage to 35%. This is all open source, 35%. So I've been analyzing for quite some time now. How do we improve our effective tax rate? And sharing that with stakeholders and members of the legislature. Of course, first off, governor's office, number one, of which I work for the governor's office of business and economic development. So kind of sharing that. So it's going to go through the legislature if they make programmatic changes, whether or not they would want to include above the line. But overall, what I can share with you is there are other ways of getting to a high effective tax rate that wouldn't necessarily require us to get into above the line. Okay. Not that I have to get into above the line, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. I think the problem is, and you've said it, we've got all these wonderful things that are going on for California, the quality of the crews, the quality of the equipment, the quality of all this kind of stuff. The problem is that producers and executive producers and studio heads don't see that. They just see dollar signs. They're looking at that. You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons why I imagine AI is going to become a big deal in the very near future. They're talking about Google and this AI and stuff like that. And that's scary because obviously we want to look at the quality and they just want to get something made for as cheaply as possible. I mean, I know people right now who are working on pilots that are filming in Atlanta, and they're being told by the execs, if this gets picked up, make us a business, find out what the business proposal, give us the business outline for how we could shoot a whole series in Georgia or New York. They said, don't even think about California, don't even think about LA. And heartbreakingly, I've sat and listened to people say this. And in the same way, we're having people who are saying the same with films. Kristen Stewart, you've just seen her, she's just been at Cannes. And she said, I wanted to film The Chronology of Water, which is her latest film, which is getting rave reviews. I wanted to film it in California. She's a California resident. She's from Pasadena. But she's had to say, I couldn't make it there because it cost too much. And it's just one of those where it's like, I understand you've got your arms tied behind your back in certain respects, but that's where people are finding it really difficult because we have got the best crews, probably the best paid crews because of the unions and everything like this, but the problem is none of them are working because there's nothing here to shoot, because none of the producers or studios want to pay for it.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I wouldn't say nothing. I mean, we just announced we have 51 projects. Yeah. I have another announcement coming out next week when we've got some big numbers in there as well. So we've some major features, TV and our reoccurring. So what I continue to hear, decision makers, they want to be in California. First of all, there's a high concentration of talent that lives in California. They want to be in California for a variety of reasons. But those who are not considering California, it comes down to the budget and the bottom line, which is why this is what we're doing. Boom, we got to improve our competitiveness. We have to increase our effective tax rate. We have to make sure that they're looking at California, and we need, and would love some, long-term commitments once we do the work that we need to do from our end on the policy side of all of this. These decision makers say, hey, we're in it for California too. Have
the studio heads said anything about this? Of those, because they're all in California. We've got all of them here, but unfortunately, you've got people like Warner Brothers and Sony who are planning on building a brand new studio in Las Vegas. They're talking about $8.5 billion being spent on production out there. These are the people that we're trying to get to spend here in California, but right now they're building studios elsewhere. It doesn't look like they're planning to stay here. Have we got any deals or any conversations going on with the studio heads that we can get them to sort of invest more in California?
Frequent communication with studio heads.
And
absolutely.
What are they saying?
Here's the thing. It's we need to improve our. Here's.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's tough. However, we still have a lot of projects that still decide to shoot here, have amazing experience, of course, and more that want to. But again, it's like I said, is we appreciate the constructive dialogue with the studios.
Yeah.
We want them to tell us, and actually, all of the conversations that I've had. Studios, independents. I mean, I went on a listening tour. I've had quite a few listening tours, but I went on a serious listening tour. And I said, tell us everything. And we put together, we compiled all of the information that we received, analyzed all the information, looked for kind of crossovers, looked for threads that we were seeing. And we're trying to adjust that right now, and which is being done, which is through the increase in annual funding that is being proposed, and through these programmatic changes, which are being proposed through the legislature. So we're trying to build out a policy framework that will improve our competitiveness, and we're going to keep people here in California, because I hear we want to be in California. This is why we're not staying.
I want to believe it. I really do. I think the unfortunate thing is, as I said, there's producers that I know right now, again, Legally Blonde, they just filmed the pilot here, and the idea is for the pilot, they film the pilot here, and the idea is for the whole series to go up to Vancouver and do it. I've been looking through Production Weekly, and it's Atlanta, it's London, it's Vancouver. There's very little California, and I think that's the saddest thing. I think they're telling you one thing, but I think they're doing the complete opposite.
Well, here's the thing, that we haven't made these changes yet.
Okay. So when they come
changes,
in,
these changes, if passed, and if this budget proposal passes, it puts us in a different category. We're able to compete at a higher level now.
Would the plan be to up it further now that New York have literally just... it's such a shame. Honestly, as I said, we announced the 750 and it seemed like it was going to be seismic. And look, I mean, we're in California. It seems like the place for seismic activity. But, so 750 million, wonderful. And then literally the week later, New York came out, we'll do 800 million. And it was almost like it kind of cut the wheels off us a little bit,
I don't see it that way. I see it like this is a bold, important move. It is a bold, important move. It is meeting a moment. A seminal moment. Everybody knows it. So you think about this is major progress. It increases the program annual funding 128% in a very, very difficult budget year. It would. Let's all just leave it at that. I don't want to get ahead of it. We're just, everybody's kind of doing what they can to. Listen, there have been a lot of extraordinary organized support out there from so many stakeholders and advocates. I was in Sacramento testifying in 2 different hearings, and walking into the hearing rooms, hundreds of people. I mean, honestly, lining the corridors there, coming to provide public comment. In support of the governor's proposal to increase. There's a strong coordinated effort, and everybody's really appreciative of that.
One of the things that I think that obviously is beyond your control is and I think this is where, Ben Affleck was interviewed recently, and he talked about how he said California has taken advantage of the film industry, or something along those lines. So maybe misquoting him here, but basically he was saying, we've not treated it respectfully. And I think that what he was talking about really, and a lot of producers out there will say it, is things like parking permits and parking and permits. They cost so much. I know that Karen Bass just this week has signed something to help with that, but the problem is there's businesses out there, as soon as they smell a film company, a production company coming in, they go, right, $30,000 for the week or $70,000. So for an independent production, that's a death knell. You can't film in California for $70,000 a week for your crew to park. So is there more plans for that? You're somebody who brought together all these businesses when in Hungary and got them all working together and stuff like that. Is there a way that we can bring together businesses in LA and give them perhaps some kind of incentives to provide cheaper parking? It sounds ridiculous, but it is such an expense for independent productions. I understand. And yes, Mayor Bass, we worked with Mayor Bass and her through the task force that she put together. So anyhow, we're very pleased to see that she has issued this directive. And listen, that's good for her. So this is it's a holistic approach to encouraging production here in the state, and it's not just increasing the tax credit. It's this. It's it's removing, doing what we can to remove the red tape. It's streamlining
streamlining the permitting process. It's parking fees. It's making sure that, well, for instance, one of the things, making sure that there are enough monitors available at our state parks, for instance, so that when projects want to shoot at a state park, that a monitor will be available, because and historically staffing can be, or recently actually since COVID, it's been a little bit more of difficult to staff some shoots, and anyhow that can be frustrating. So we're the California Film Commission, we're very customer service oriented. So we want to hear from filmmakers. We want to hear about what's working in our state, what's not working in our state. If you have an issue with price gouging, let us know. We'll see what we can do about it. But at least we're gathering all that data, so that when it's time to make some sort of move, or take it to the mayor's office, or whatever it is that we need to do, again, we want to have film-friendly policies. We want it to be a good experience. We want it to be an experience where filmmakers don't feel that they're being taken advantage of. We don't want that. I mean, independent producers, these are like such important storytelling voices. We love our independent filmmakers here in California. We want them to be able to tell their stories and tell them here. We want it to be a good experience.
That's one of the things that New York's done well as well. I think they've brought in something that's $100 million that's specifically for independent film productions that they'll invest within. So it allows first-time filmmakers and people like that. If I'm a first-time filmmaker making my film in California, why should I come here? What's attracting me to this place? You know what I mean? Because I love California. I'm like you. I absolutely adore it. I loved, like, one of my favourite directors is Paul Thomas Anderson. Most of his stuff is made here. It's all sort of set in LA, and he captures LA so beautifully. How do we push our next Paul Thomas Anderson, or our next people like that who are going to make films out here in California, to make films in California? What would you suggest? What would you say to them in order to get them to film here, rather than just telling them how wonderful it is? What have they got available to? Because it is, but what have they got available to them to make them make their movies out here? You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, we found that some independent producers were intimidated by our applying to our tax credit program. They didn't even know they were eligible. So it's our threshold is $1 million. So it's $1 million spend. So we set out to put together info sessions and reach out to the independent filmmaker community, and put together orientation programs, webinars, to talk them through the process. It's been amazing. It's just, and the team at the California Film Commission have formerly worked in entertainment production. They know budgets, they know production. They're so dedicated. They care about the community. So they're like really shepherding and helping those independent projects make their way through the application process. And it's a lot of work for them too, because application process, but they've been doing that, and that's been extremely helpful. In this legislation, it's proposed to increase the allotment within the pie, some percentages for more for independent films. So we'll be able to take in more if this passes.
Will that also include independent television as well, pilots and things like that? Is there going to be things that are passed to help those as well? Because television, when we look at it, films are in state for like maybe 2 months, 2.5, 3 months at best. Whereas your television, that's 6 to 8 months. It's giving people jobs for most of the year. You know what I mean? It's allowing them to get their medical insurance and all that kind of stuff. I think that television is a way to kind of keep production here in California a lot better than it is just focusing on the films themselves.
We were talking earlier just about lost production to other jurisdictions. Again, but we still own the volume. So let's remember that. California still has the largest volume of entertainment production because of our of TV and streaming. So it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah. And talk to me about, so what does the next, I mean, I'm trying to bring this to a close now. I've got a couple more things I want to talk about. Obviously, I want to talk about 2 weeks ago. I mean, everything's changing so quickly. Karen Bass announced something this week. We had Adrian Nazarian's things that happened maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I can't remember now. And then about 2 weeks ago, President Trump came out and said that he had these 100% tariffs on foreign films. I mean, what's your response to that? How do you see, could that work? I mean, I know that John Voight let out a huge plan which people can view online, and there's lots of, fairly good ideas in that, but this 100% tariff, what's your thought process? Is that going to help us bring production back?
Listen, on the tariff piece,
yeah,
we'll take a look at whatever the White House presents, in an official way. Of course, we'll have a look at it. But the piece that's included in the recommendations of a federal tax incentive, yeah, great, stackable. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I think propose that if you receive a tax credit from a state, then you would receive an additional 10%. If you don't, it would be 20%. I mean,
yeah.
This stackable would be, it would help a lot.
Yeah. No
question about it.
Gavin Newsom came out immediately after Trump said that, and he said, make America film again. I think he said something like that. But he was talking about $7.5 billion federal tax incentive program. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you'd support? Is that something that you kind of think would certainly bring things back to America?
Well, that's Governor Newsom did suggest that.
Yeah.
And I'm also a strong proponent. I mean, if we can have more federal tax incentives on top of our state tax incentive programs, listen, we're going to be like, it's greatly improve our competitiveness.
Yeah. It's something that Hungary did very well, didn't they? They had a national scheme to invest in film and television. I suppose, is that something kind of what America's trying to do?
Well, yes, different in a way. They don't have individual states or regions.
Oh, okay.
You see, so it's just one big national program.
Yeah.
But we should listen. I mean, we should have a film office in Washington, D.C. There should be some federal film office there.
Yeah.
And federal tax incentive would help a lot.
Yeah. Now, bringing it to a close now, obviously you've been you've been the executive director of the California Film Commission for 6 years now. Obviously had a lot of stuff going on. You've mentioned it before, COVID, and then we've had even the wildfires this year, but also these strikes and everything like that. What does the next, 5 years look like to you? How are you planning on bringing back films and television to this state over the next 5 years? Do you think it can be over the next 5 years if we get all this stuff passed? Do you think it can look a lot more bright? Tell me.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, since the inception of the program, we've had 700 projects come in, $26 billion in expenditures, with the $3.3 billion in outlay of tax credit dollars, putting 200,000 people to work. And so I wanted increase that significantly. I think we really need to also talk about, we want to build out our resilience. We want to make sure that we are adaptable, but we want to make sure that we have a solid policy framework in order, and so that we are prepared for the future.
Yeah.
Prepared for the future. I'd also really, what I'd like to see too, is California is a big state, 48 counties. We've continued to build out these hubs, these production hubs.
Yeah.
Continue to build out those hubs so that more opportunity is offered across California. Not just more opportunity, but there's high concentration in Los Angeles, obviously, Bay Area, but then other cities building out with training programs, infrastructure. I'd love to see that. So it's, I'm proud of California.
Yeah.
It's we need to do everything we can to make sure that we keep entertainment production here, important part of our legacy. We didn't even talk about the nexus between film and tourism. When our filming is down, our tourism is down. Tourism is our number one export. We don't, that's a big piece of it, but it really is jobs. And a so important part of our identity is California. Think about that. Place a value on that. Entertainment capital of the world. Losing that. What is, first of all, it's jobs, but losing that identity when we don't need to. Yeah. It's like we still got it. We are at a point where something needs to be done, but we have so much here already in this ecosystem, in this creative ecosystem. So we just need to do what we can.
This is slightly out of order, but I'm gonna not out of order. I mean out of order in terms of the interview. But so talking about, I've been down there. Sound stages at Universal, empty. Sound stages at Warner Brothers, fairly empty. Sound stages at Sony, empty. It's pretty barren out there. I know you had a soundstage program that you had where you were incentivizing people to use these sound stages, but it feels like the cost to even fill in these sound stages, is prohibitive in itself, which seems ridiculous. Especially when you're filming for these studios. Is that something that we can even increase the spending on and things like that, so we can get people filming in our sound stages again as well? Another one, just before we get onto that, another one is competitive shows. I know that you're trying desperately to bring them back. We know from the Rob Lowe podcast and all these different ones that they're filming in Dublin, Ireland right now. They're flying American audiences with an American presenter, with American contestants over to Dublin to film because it's cheaper than filming in one of our sound stages here. That seems mad. It seems like a damning indictment to California, sadly. Yeah.
Yeah. The entertainment landscape has changed a lot, and consumer behavior of what they watch. So that's why programs need to adapt and modernize, to meet the moment. These competition shows are big budget shows, hiring a lot of people. Okay. Our program is just scripted. Why? We don't want to leave money on the table. We don't want to leave, not fill jobs that we could. Yeah. So it's definitely something that's being considered. Definitely something that's being considered.
Yeah. Well,
and the soundstage program. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So
please.
There's a moment in time when there was a low level of vacancy in sound stages during the streaming wars. Yeah. You had some streaming companies that was just holding studios because they're going to have a project and once might be greenlit very quickly, and they need a stage to be able to shoot it on, so they would hold it because they can. Yeah. So there was a very, very low level of vacancy, and there was a lot of production taking place. So yes, this has been a major shift, and I continue to hear about the vacancy and the vacancy problems. And what we try to do too is we try to anytime somebody reaches out to us, we try to help match, just in terms of, so at the Film Commission, hey, somebody will call and say, do you know of vacant sound stages? And we'll say, here's a list. People will be feeding us with information about, I've got 2 studios, I've got this, I've got, or trying to help to match those projects with the sound stages, and encouraging investment in infrastructure too, that is not just for these tentpole projects, but also kind of looking toward the future of what those needs will be.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I'm hoping that, and I think a lot of people out there are hoping that things turn around and that we can actually start getting production back here in California. It would be really great to have people will obviously want to reach out to you. I know that the California Film Commission, you told me, have they are the LA Film Office, I suppose, in that respect, so people can reach out with ideas or different things like that. There might be independent producers who might have more ideas and things like that, or might want to ask you questions and things like that. Is that something that they can reach out to on the California Film Commission website?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They definitely can do that. And
Okay.
again, we've got a wonderful team there. And we could always talk about, too, if you want us to put together some kind of info session for your filmmakers.
amazing.
I mean, that would probably be the best thing for us to do.
Yeah.
And what we could do is take questions in advance, or questions on the fly, and I could get my team there.
One of the things I'd love to do with you is to do something like a panel or something like that, a panel discussion where we could sit down and people could ask questions, like a Q&A, and we could just answer them. Because I really think that, although I'm trying desperately to be the mouthpiece, it would be great to have people who are producers who I know, who have been, and Shane knows, and different people who are involved with this company are involved, and just to educate people on what's there for them and what's in California for them as well. That would be amazing.
Absolutely. We are the Film Commission for all of California.
Amazing.
So we'd be happy to do that. I'll get the heads of each of my departments to participate, and they will not only willingly, they will be very enthusiastic participants.
Fantastic.
With the opportunity to talk to members of the Filmmakers Academy.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Colleen Bell. Thank you for
Pleasure.
spending time with me.
Thanks, Chris. Great to be here.